the need for freight brokers. So I consider myself, or should I say, us as freight brokers, as the sales team for carrier companies. A lot of time, carrier companies they don't have salespeople or they don't understand sales. I know for me, coming from the trucking industry, as far as the driver side, I didn't know anything about sales and how to connect with the shipper and how to, put together negotiate a contract and things like that. So that's kind of where we come in at. And eventually, those carriers who have the know-how and start to figure those things out on their own, they go after the shippers themselves. But until then, you need somebody like us to connect them and make it all make sense for them. And of course, a lot of times the carriers don't have enough trucks to service these accounts.
Welcome to the ThinkFreight podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Werding, and it's my pleasure to have today's guest, DuShawn Falls from Greenfalls Logistics. DuShawn, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
What's going on, man? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. I think you've got a really interesting story, and you and I have talked a few different times. I wanted to, have you come on, kind of share what you've done in the industry and kind of what you're doing with Greenfalls. I think it's really interesting. So let's kind of dive right into your background and kind of how you first got into freight and logistics.
Oh, okay. So how did I first get into logistics? Oh, first of all, I wanted to say I appreciate you for having me on as well. I want to make that clear.
Absolutely.
As far as how I got in logistics, so my dad was actually a truck driver first. I used to work at a fast food restaurant. Mm-hmm. So I was working at the fast food restaurant. Okay. I had that job actually as a teen, and then I had my first child. And when I had my first child, I started to think, okay, how can I, provide more money for my family, things like that. And my father, he happened to be a truck driver and kind of enticed me to, join the industry. And then I got my start with CR England Logistics. Is there CR England Trucking? I don't remember the name. But CR England, the big dog.
Yeah, I think it might be. Yeah, the big dogs.
But yeah, I got my license.
How long were you? Oh,
go ahead.
How long were you with CR England?
Oh, so I was actually with CR England for a year. I started out, I believe. Okay. I'm not sure if it was a year and a half or a 2-year process as far as not having to pay for your license. So you go to school I think it's a 2-week process when you get your license and everything like that. And then if you stay for a year, then you won't have to pay for the license.
Got it. Okay. So you were there long enough to where you didn't have to pay for it. What did you do after CR? What did you do after England? What did you move into after that?
So I went from CR England. I actually was on a dedicated route with CR England. So I really enjoyed that. And then my partner, this is a funny story. My partner over the weekend, he caught a DUI. So he got fired and I no longer had a partner. So they tried to send me solo. And I didn't really want to do solo. So I went to night because they were offering me something dedicated as well. So I went from CR England to night. And then from night, I went to a Ryder, then from Ryder to Rouen. Yeah, so that's kind of my journey.
Okay. And then so, you kind of, you've been around the industry, obviously your dad being a truck driver, and then you kind of following those footsteps, and then you kind of made the shift into a brokerage, right? So why not the route of, maybe going and owning or starting your own trucking company? Why the brokerage route?
Oh, so I did. So I started my own trucking company.
Okay.
Yeah, S&K Mac Trucking. It was my first ever business. So I started it, I believe it was November 2018. That's when we started the paperwork file for the LLC and everything like that. And then we started conducting actual business January of 2019. Yeah, so.
Okay. And what kind of freight were you guys kind of specializing in? Were you guys just doing power only? Was it dry van, reefer, flat?
So starting out, we pretty much haul whatever we can get our hands on. So, because when you first start your authority, there's not many people that are interested in working with you. So we work with brokerages like TQL and Coyote. They were pretty much the only guys that would work with us as we was building our authority. And then later on, we kind of niched down. I
Yeah.
mean, we started out going over the road, things like that, and then we kind of figured out that the sweet spot was like going from California to Phoenix and California to Las Vegas. That became our thing.
I think I lost you there for a second.
Oh yeah.
Yep, I heard you say you were going over the road and then you cut out.
Oh okay. Oh yeah. So we were going over the road when we first got started. Places like Washington, Oregon, Utah, things like that. And then we decided that Phoenix, from California to Phoenix,
Hmm.
California, and California to Las Vegas, that was our pretty much our market.
Okay, so you kind of carved out like a niche market for yourselves and running back and forth between like Cali and Arizona and Cali and Vegas. What kind of
Right.
stuff were you guys? Did you guys like specialize in anything, or was it just like general freight? Anything you guys get your hands on going to those areas?
So I mean, I think let's see. I mean, it was kind of general freight. I mean, it was freight that we definitely enjoyed hauling, and then there were things that we would stay away from. Like we figured out early on that grocery freight is just a longer, you got
Mm.
longer waiting times and things like that. So we
Oh
tried to
yeah,
stick closer to the one pick one drop stuff, the stuff that's easy on, easy off, and then later on.
yeah.
Towards the end, we got a contract. So, and that's when we started niching down. We were hauling beverages, beer, and things like that.
Hmm. How did I always hear about a lot of beer haulers talking about, they don't like to haul it because it's so heavy
Right.
and there's a lot of waiting times on both ends. How did you guys fare with hauling beer? Did you guys find that to be the same or was it a little bit different experience for you guys?
You know what? Hauling beer was excellent, actually. Actually, I met the connection from LinkedIn. It was my first ever contract. It was
Oh,
actually
awesome.
me. It was me trying to build out my brokerage and found a contract for my trucking company. So it was crazy how it happened. A lady by the name of Michelle, somebody I still talk to this day. But yeah, it was an excellent opportunity. So
That's awesome.
it was drop and hook for us. We had our own trailers, so we would drop our trailers there. They would load
Hmm,
them,
okay.
and they loaded 24 hours a day, so that was great. The only thing sometimes, I mean, unloading would take a while sometimes, but for the most part, it was a pretty cut and dry thing. It was always excellent. The drivers really enjoyed it, so it was a great contract for us. The rates wasn't that great. I won't lie, the rates wasn't that great, but
Yeah.
it was a great contract for us though.
No, that's awesome, man. And it's awesome that you guys were able to like forge that connection that
Mhm.
was able to benefit both parties. And it sounded like you guys didn't have to sit there and have to like wait for drivers to be loaded. It was just seems like you dropped your trailers. They let you know when they were ready, or they kind of told you, hey, these will be ready by X time, and they
Oh
could come
yeah.
back, grab them, have another driver swing and grab them, and then take and drop or be unloaded, whether it was live unload at the other facility. It just kind
Mhm.
of made things at least a little bit easier when you guys own the trailers and you guys can kind of do that drop and hook program. As a broker, like, do you guys still offer those kind of services, or have you guys kind of gotten away from doing the like drop and hook with trailers? Do you guys have any assets like that?
No, so we actually got away from having assets. So that's something that we dealt with. The business, we actually had to wind it down at the top of the year. It was a tough
Hmm.
decision to make, but it was the right decision to make at the time. It just was hemorrhaging money, and just didn't have enough cash to continue to float us. So
Yeah,
we shut the asset side down and kind of found a new love in brokerage. It's actually been, I don't know. The trucking side was, I enjoyed it, but I'm learning that I really like brokerage. I really like leading. I really like training. I like all of that stuff. So the brokerage side has been more of
that's
a
cool.
thing for me at this time period.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So let's dive into that a little bit. So, you guys wound down the asset side at the top of the year, and you've mainly just been focusing on the brokerage side, which sounds like, in the long run, it's going to be obviously, I think, better for you guys and better position for you guys. How has that side been? How long have you guys been been operational on the brokerage end, and
Mhm.
how has that time been, and kind of what are some of the I guess obstacles you found of
Mhm.
growing and of freight brokerage,
Mhm.
during this tight market.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, when we had the trucking company, we actually started the brokerage in the midst of all of that. So once because we started off driving the trucks. So we started
Okay.
off driving the trucks. Me and my brother, I taught him how to drive,
Yeah.
and then when we had enough drivers to stop driving, we didn't really have much to do. The business was kind of running. Well, what I thought at the time was like a well-oiled machine, but eventually I figured out that it wasn't. But so we kind of started the brokerage just, thinking that we could broker freight. We were running with a lot of brokerages, and it was like it couldn't be that hard. And then I got into start doing it, and it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. But I like challenges, so it's just something that it's just something to do. I enjoy it. I've been in the industry now for a long time, so it's just something different for me. I never before I started running a brokerage, I never did sales. I never trained sales, so that's a
Mm,
new challenge. So it's just exciting for me.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said something really interesting. You said, you thought that the brokerage side was going to be easy.
Mhm.
Um, Let me just ask you why. Like, was there any specific reason you thought that, or was it just kind of like what you had always heard a lot of like other drivers or other people in the industry say, like, "Oh, go broker freight because it's easy."
Mhm. You know what? I think most trucking companies and owner operators and drivers, they think running brokerage is easy. We think everybody's sitting around, pencil pushing and things like that. We don't have any respect for the brokers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We think they're controlling the market and controlling the prices and all of that stuff. And then you start it and you figure out that actually the carrier companies control price. Actually, the shippers control price. We don't control anything. We're just
Yeah.
connectors. We find the people that are in the
Hmm.
lanes that
Yeah.
enjoy running these specific lanes, and we connect them with these shipping companies. That's what we do. We don't control pricing and things like that. So, we have our small influence on
Yeah.
pricing, but not a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty small, like, marginal amount as to what, how much control we have over the
Right.
market. Obviously, if it's in different times, the brokerages there. I think that I saw recently that like freight brokerages now control about 20% of freight
Mhm.
in shipper routing guides, which, going back to the early 2000s was close to like 0%, 1%, 2%.
Mhm.
So it's really shown like that the freight brokerage industry as a whole is growing dramatically because there is that need or that desire for freight brokers, right? Like
Mhm.
they don't just come out of nowhere, and if there's no need, there wouldn't be any freight brokers. There's obviously a reason why shippers use freight brokers. So as you've kind of seen, have worked on both ends, how do you see kind of the need for freight brokers um, versus kind of how you looked at freight brokers when you were a driver?
I mean, so the need for freight brokers. So I consider myself, or should I say, us as freight brokers, as the sales team for carrier companies. A lot of time, carrier companies they don't have salespeople or they don't understand
Hmm.
sales. I know for me, coming from the trucking industry, as far as the driver side, I didn't know anything about sales and how to connect with the shipper and how to, put together a negotiated contract and things like that. So that's kind of where we come in at. And eventually, I mean, those carriers who have the know-how and start to figure those things out on their own, they go after the shippers themselves. But until then, you need somebody like us to connect them and make it
Definitely.
all make sense for them. And of course, a lot of times the carriers don't have enough trucks to service these accounts. Like for us, I mean, once the account started once the price didn't make sense, then we had to start searching for outside freight, spot freight, things like that. And a lot of times that's where the brokers
Yep.
like us come in at and handle that side of the market for those carrier companies.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because a lot of times, um, even some of the whether it's shippers who are shipping one lane a month or 150 lanes a day, some of these companies just don't want to work with trucking companies only because they don't want to have to deal with 50 or 100 people, right? If they're moving 100 trucks a month, that would be probably having to contact 10 or 12, 15 trucking companies that
Right.
have assets above 10. So, or just one company that has a ton of assets. So it's just tough because you want to obviously, in that situation, they could handle, 4 brokers instead of 15 different trucking companies. And
Right.
it makes a lot more sense for them to say, hey, I can dwindle, my supply chain of people I'm dealing with every day. I can dwindle that down from, 15 to 4. That makes a lot more sense for them as well. So all around, it kind of the freight brokerage aspect, I don't think is really ever going to go away. I know that a lot of carriers, think that the brokerages will eventually die off, and this is, as of right now, Convoy, this morning is officially closing. So it's like I've seen a lot of smaller carriers just talk about how it's, some boycotts on some of these companies that are pushing them out. And it's really not. It's just because the freight markets are down, and,
Mm-hmm.
and VC money is tight, and it's tough to, when you're a company like some of these bigger companies that try to just
Mm-hmm.
buy their market share, and they just burn cash flow.
Right.
That's really how these situations arise. It's not so much that there's boycotts against the company with 5,000 carrier groups. There's plenty of carriers for them to go around. So it doesn't really affect, like the market the way that some people think. And I think that freight brokers are always going to kind of be a thing.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think freight brokers are important. I think all brokers are important. Loan
Yeah,
brokers, freight brokers. I mean, you have to have a connection between
definitely.
parties. It just is what it is. I know they want to have these tech platforms and things that like that connecting people, but at the end of the day, the relationships matter. And computers and technology can't build
Definitely.
relationships. They can't nurture relationships, right? We need to connect with people and figure out their needs and things like that. Tech and all of those things, it was designed to help. And I think lately, they're starting to figure out, okay, they're starting to think that it's designed to take stuff away, take people away out of the equation. We need the people. The people are important.
Yeah. Yeah, the people are important. I think that that's a critical aspect that's kind of missed. Is that, in some of these brokerages, it comes down to some of those personal relationships. If
Right.
if you're just putting freight on a board and you have no real relationship, you're less likely to, number one, award that freight to that person, or that technology, essentially, because it's not really, like you said, it's not relationship driven. You don't really have that that interpersonal, like, connection with them to know, like, hey, is my freight actually going to get picked up today? Is this actually going to happen? So like you said, it comes down to relationships, and I think that that's something that is often overlooked in freight. I think that there's a lot of brokers and carriers who just look at things out on the transactional side of things, and
Mm-hmm.
don't really explore the relationship side. A lot of brokers look at carriers as, a one and done model, and while that might be something they can get away with today, if you're not really
Mm-hmm.
building out those networks and building out your carrier groups who can service these lanes later, you're really doing a disservice to yourself, to your employees, and to a lot of carrier groups as well, a lot of small carriers.
No, for sure. I think that's something that goes unnoticed. But now it's starting to make more sense now than ever, because there's so little carriers, and a lot of carriers are exiting the market. A lot of brokerages are exiting the market. And you know
Definitely.
what? I used a lot of those services as well when I had trucks. I used Convoy, Uber Freight. I mean, they're known to have the lowest
Hmm.
prices. I mean, they did what they were good at was those short runs where, like connector freight, I used to call them. That little connector freight. You didn't make a lot of money on the freight, but
Yeah.
it connected you with the next thing. And I think that's a great tool for companies that are interested in that have that kind of freight. But other lanes have to be sold, like a multi-stop pick. With 6 or 7 drops, things like that. That has to be sold. That's not something that you just put on the board and wait for somebody to, grab that. All of these things have to be sold sometimes. So I think there's certain products and services that you can commoditize and turn into some type of tech enabled thing. And then I think for the rest of the market, guys like myself and other brokerages who do a great job of executing and building relationships with carriers, I think that's where we come in at it, take it into the next level.
As you know, kind of as you said that, what do you hope, I guess, for Greenfall Logistics and for your company? What is your vision, for the next 3 months, getting through, fourth quarter here, and going forward into next year? What are kind of some of your goals and your vision, to kind of I guess, take some market share, is also,
Mhm.
and also, go about like getting new, penetrating some of your existing accounts? What kind of, I guess, advice, or what kind of vision can you share with some newer brokerages or newer carriers out there that are just kind of looking for some general direction as to like what they can expect, and kind of what other people are doing out there?
So for Greenfalls Logistics, I mean, when I started it out in my bedroom, man, it was just me trying to figure out another way to, like a vertical for our trucking company, right? And then
Yeah.
what happened was I started meeting people that were interested in working with me,
Mm,
and then that changed everything for me. So that's just like the most important part. I want to help people come in and make a home for themselves as far as Green Falls Logistics is concerned. I wanted to be a home for them somewhere where
definitely.
they can learn and grow and be led to a greater possibility for their future. That's important to me. I want it to be an employee owned company as well, something that people can gain equity in.
I
I
love
I
that.
tell everybody that I hire, like, hey man, if you do something great for this company, if you make waves, you definitely can sit down and have an equity conversation. I think that's important. And just something that we
Yeah,
can all grow together. It's a big thing for me. Like I enjoy people. That's my favorite thing. Like, I like people. I like helping them. I like making people
I agree.
successful. That's great to me. Like it's literally that was the greatest thing for our trucking company. I had guys buying homes, doing different things for their family. I think that made me
I love
feel
that.
like good that I was a part of that, and that's what I want to be a part of with the industry. So for all my customers, if I
Yeah.
can help them save any money and take their business to the next level, that's awesome. And then for all of the people that I employ, that I hire, that decides that they want to be led by me and join in at this company, I hope that make them successful. I pray about it every night, man. That's what I'm interested in.
I love that, man. That's an awesome way to go about it. And what kind of advice can you share for some of these, for small carriers, owner ops that are looking to kind of do the exact same thing you did, and scale their
Mhm.
operations, and really help, provide additional, support, and levels of economic, support to their community by providing jobs. What kind of advice do you give to some of those guys, that are trying to follow follow in your footsteps?
Uh, so any advice that I would have, I would say put people first. It's not about yourself. It's about
Mm,
the people that you employ. Make it about them. Take as little money as you can and invest the money back into them. Of course, sometimes that's not great business sense, but you got to invest in your people, man. You got that's the people are important. So put your money, invest into your people. Definitely control as much cost as you can. As far as
yeah.
carriers, keep an eye on your fuel. Keep an eye on your fuel. Keep an eye on your drivers and making sure that they're doing pre-chips and things like that, to control any costs, you get ahead of any problems. And I think one thing that's not talked about enough in all industries is just controlling your spending as far as once you take on debt, once you take on capital. That's something that really hurt us. You got to make sure
Mm,
that once you take on a loan, that you are responsible with that money and you know where to spend it in your business that will help you elevate and grow like a kind of a organic pace. I know we're all interested in growth and want to grow the
yeah.
fastest way we can, but the most important thing is profit at the end of the day. If you don't have any profits and you're just using that money to pay yourself and pay the employees, then you're going to eventually run out of cash, which we're seeing a lot happen right now. And I sympathize with all those companies because I
And
went through a similar
yeah,
experience.
exactly. Yeah, and just, I was just going to say that, just piggybacking off what we just talked about with Convoy, it's they were buying a lot of market share, and losing a lot of cash in the process of doing that,
Mhm.
and it's definitely a way to gain market share if you've got a lot of cash and you've got a lot of
Mhm.
investors willing to just continue to throw cash at that. But unfortunately,
Yes.
in this, especially now, cash has just gotten so much harder to get a hold of
Yes.
for some of these companies, for a lot of companies. So it's just, it's all about that money management, and not, if it's not a profitable load, especially in this environment, if you're not making profit, if you're not taking profitable freight, especially on the brokerage side, I understand there's times when you have to take it on the chin with some bigger shippers and things like that, because
Yes.
you've committed and you don't want to lose that. But there's times and places for that, and there's also times to have conversations with those shippers, because if you take some of that freight for so long, you end up in bad situations and end up having to close your doors. So
Right.
yeah, it's just it comes down to, like you said, it comes down to money management and really like knowing your numbers and knowing where your profitability is.
Right, and you would think with that much money, they would have the best accounting and things like that. But I'm no expert, but I know it's tough to run a business, man. Small,
Yeah,
big,
no,
medium size. Running a business is hard, and for them, I know a lot of the times they have a lot of investors and people who are aiding them in
mm,
burning the cash. But it comes to a point where you got to eventually become profitable. I mean, it just has to, it's business. So I don't, I never understood the
yeah,
tech
exactly.
model where they could just have so much money and capital to burn. But I don't know. We're all not afforded
I
that same
think it, I,
opportunity.
I think it comes, I think it comes, DuShawn, as we kind of wrap here, I think it really comes down to like, a lot of these VC backed, brokerages that have kind of come out over the last few years.
Mhm.
These VC companies know how to grow, and that's this one particular way.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the freight market is just so fickle. You can't just take a bunch of lost deals for 2 or 3 years and expect to have a ton of market share and loyal customers. That's just not the way the freight market works. It's always
Mhm.
going to be on that scale of ebbs and flows and those market cycles. So I think that we're seeing a trend of VC exiting, probably a lot of actual brokerages, and
Mhm.
focusing more on the actual technology instead of trying to just throw money at market share. Because I think that obviously the hope is to get to some of these big names, like try to take down the TQLs and the Echoes and the Coyotes, who are
Mhm.
generally profitable several $billion a year. So they want that model. But when you're just burning when you're burning billions and dollars, burning billions of dollars,
Right.
it doesn't really help you put profit on the table. So I think that that's going to be really interesting to see kind of how that model and how those shifts change over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. One thing that did bother me over the last few years of the industry is that tech does just think they can come in and take over everything. They got the big pockets,
Mm,
and they
yeah.
feel like they're smarter than everybody. And then a lot of times, this is the result of it once the cash dries up. And they have to take into account that, like I said before, the people are important at the end of the day. You can't just undercut everybody on price and then
Yeah.
hope for the best. You got
Yep.
to eventually make profits, especially in this industry.
Yeah.
The amount of losses you can take at a small period of time is so great. Like I remember my worst month this year, I lost about like 12 grand. So I can only imagine that on a scale of that size,
Whew,
right? Like that's
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 tough.
that's insane, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, you got to make the numbers make sense at the end of the day.
I I'll tell you, an anecdotal story, Sean. When I was at TQL, they had an account that the market had shifted and they had bid. Um, the account executive had bid like really low rates on
Mhm.
a bunch of contract freight, and we were the company was awarded the freight. The losses started to add up. The market flipped, and they were losing like $10,000 to $25,000 a week on this one account. And it went into like week 3 of them losing. I think it was like maybe 20 or $25,000, and the account executive on the account, he quit because of all the losses that were coming, and he just didn't know how to handle it, and he ultimately the company ultimately ended up like renegotiating contract rates with them because of
Mhm.
like how drastically the market had shifted. But it just goes to show like some of these companies like TQL or some of these big boys can sustain some of those bigger losses. I mean, you're talking in a month probably $100,000
Right.
gone just because of one account. Like that's just, and they were willing to do it because it's, they don't want to lose the market share. It was an enterprise, massive enterprise level account. So it's like, they don't want to lose that market share, but also they had to look at it like, hey, if we have to do this for 52 weeks on these contracts, there's no way. So it just
Yeah.
comes down to looking at your losses, your what you're doing in each load, and saying, hey, does this make sense overall?
Yeah, for sure. I believe that you have to have that conversation eventually. If you're losing money every load that you move,
Yeah.
eventually you have to have the conversation. I mean, I believe that the company that you're working with, which is your customer, would like for you to be profitable and happy, as well as them save money as well. So it all, you have to make all of the numbers make sense for all parties involved. If not, we're just, sucking each other dry. It has to make sense, everything. So yeah, that's just what I
Exactly.
believe. I've had to have those tough conversations
No, I
before.
completely agree.
I hate to have them, but what can we
Yeah.
do? What can we do?
At the end of the day, it's like, yeah, like I know things shifted, but again, I can't go out of business because the market shifted,
Right. That
You've
doesn't
got to
help
pay market
anybody.
rates, unfortunately.
That doesn't help
Exactly.
anybody.
Just
So,
further hurt. If further hurts things, it exacerbates things even worse.
right.
But DuShawn, listen, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today, telling us your story. Tell us a little bit about your story. I definitely want to have you on the podcast again in the future.
Absolutely.
Make sure you guys check out DuShawn and Greenfalls Logistics. Sean, where can people find you guys online?
So I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm just adding a few other guys as well, some new recruits. I'm trying to get their LinkedIn profiles more efficient. So I'm trying to get all of these things together. It's been a tough ride, man. It's been tough, but I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. DuShawn Falls is all of my handles for everything. So that's how they can link with me.
Perfect. We'll put I'll have all the links for DuShawn and for Greenfalls down in the show notes or in the description if you're watching on YouTube. If you guys like today's podcast, make sure you guys check out DuShawn, tell him we sent you, tell him what's up, and make sure you guys leave a like and review on the podcast. It helps us out tremendously. And don't forget, we do drop a newsletter every Monday and Wednesday. Those come out right around 10 a.m. at thinkfreight.io. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks, DuShawn. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.